a year before me, actually, so I came in and.
Good morning. Welcome to this beautiful Wednesday, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Make sure you think of your other today. I know I will. Mine's on the way down here, hopefully. Um, but we're going to call to order the General Government Appropriations meeting. And I'm going to call on Chairman Prince to open us up.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this day, Father. We thank you again for the opportunity to do the business of this great state of Georgia. Father, we ask that everything we do be pleasing unto you. Give us your guidance, your wisdom, your understanding, but most of all, your Son, Jesus. And it's his name we pray. Amen.
All right, we're gonna roll right into it. We have Commissioner Moore on Zoom, I believe. We're gonna see if I can manage this here.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you can hear me, that is awesome. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Hopefully this works. David, we've also sent it down. I believe Stacy just sent it down just in case. First of all, Mr. Chairman, thank you again for letting us do this remotely. We have our board meeting this morning, and it is at 10 o'clock. We're expecting some folks from the public to be here as a part of that meeting, and obviously being able to do it virtually helps the agency tremendously and allows me to not just handle this, of course, hearing important, but certainly the board and the public's business that deals with DDS as well. So thank you again. And first of all, thank the committee and thank you for your support and thank I'm always thankful to the governor for the opportunity and the recommendation that he's given for the department. And I'm again going to try and share this screen. I don't typically do it a whole lot in this setting, in the Zoom setting versus Teams. So hopefully this works out okay. And if it does, please let me know. Can you see that?
You had it?
Here we go.
All right. Well, good deal. We'll get straight into, I know there's a number of reports that you're going to hear this morning, so I'll get straight into the request from the department. And I will certainly entertain any questions as it may relate to the statewide ads, but here on the screen, I've listed essentially the 5 statewide ads that affect the agency as well as the line items in which they are indicated. First of all, we are extremely happy for the opportunity to even request for a 4% cost of a living adjustment, of course, not to exceed $3,000 for our staff members. They are folks who work very hard on behalf of Georgians. And as you all know, over the years, you along with the Senate as well as the governor have done a lot to improve the salaries of these folks. And certainly, as we continue to see those salaries increase, especially outside of Metro Atlanta, we are seeing retention with those increases, and we hope they will continue as well in the Metro Atlanta areas as we continue to get these salaries even higher. The base salary for a driver examiner, which is essentially the overwhelming majority of the positions in our agency, is right at $32,000 now. When I started DDS as deputy commissioner back in 2012, that amount was $22,000. So we're certainly thankful for that increase. It gets us a little bit more competitive, especially again in the rural areas, but we continue to try and find ways to make it even more competitive in the metropolitan Atlanta area. But this 4% increase will certainly help these folks as they as we continue to try and retain them. The only other targeted or statewide ad that I'd like to just mention, of course, I'll talk about the GTA rate adjustments if necessary, but I think those are consistent throughout all the agencies. But I'd like to talk about the 15 current law enforcement officers that we have in our agency, and this $3,000 targeted increase for them. These are our investigators. They're sworn. They have an average tenure in law enforcement of 20 years across those. Currently 13 employed of those 15 positions. The other two are being, we have some people that are going through the hiring process now in order to ensure that we get that number back to 15 and we're fully staffed, at least to the point that we can be staffed to do the work that's important to people. I always tell them they are the integrity of the organization. If there are things related to driver's license fraud, they are the investigators who go out, look at these issues along with law enforcement, local and federal, because we work with many partners around the state in order to do the job of ensuring the integrity of our licensing process. So this targeted salary increase also is very much helpful to them. So again, on their behalf, thank you all for your consideration of this increase. The other three items, I think, total that we'll talk about this morning that are requests by the agency. You've seen this first one before. It is the very same request that we had last year. As most of you know, every single time that a person is not a citizen and we don't have documentation that we can verify that this person is either naturalized or certainly born in this country, what we do is we go through a system alien verification process with the federal government to determine that these individuals who are seeking our credentials are here lawfully. And as we do that with every single case, we have been informed, and I think we told you this last year, and I'll repeat it again, but the Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, each year over the next several years, they will be increasing the fee for each time we run an individual through this database. The current base rate is $1. It will go up to $1.50 in October of this year. Next year, go up to $2. Following year to $2.50, and it will finally top out at roughly $3.10 in FY federal fiscal year 2028. So last year we made this request because we were going from 50 cents per transaction up to $1. This year's request is from $1 up to $1.50. Again, these will be continued requests as we move through these cycles for each year that these rates increase. The next line item is 22.2.7. This is a continuation of a request that we made and amended for our cloud solution and maintenance of the essentially 86 million driver records that we hold that are historical as well as current for the agency. As you see on the screen, our goal is to move these records in a much more secure location. That transition hopefully will start through the amended request, but we have to maintain the security of those documents. And the request that we are asking for is $1,980,000 in order to do this. We currently have 2 data centers with a third-party provider, one that is located in Dallas, Texas, the other in Pasadena, California. And each year we have been paying for the maintenance and security of the data that exists in those data centers, as well as any hardware or upgrades that need to be done. What I'd like to point out to the committee is over time, through the migration, we actually expect to save a few dollars than we've been traditionally having to pay with the actual physical data centers in the past. So what that looks like is over a 5-year period. Typically, we replace all of those equipment as well as some of the software that goes into encrypting the information, etc. and it cost us on average about 10.6 million in the data centers today. And over time, as you see, the request is 1.980. So roughly around the same, but over a 4-year period, maybe hopefully a little bit less as we continue to go forward with this contract. So again, this is a continuation of a request that we made in the amended. Next line item is also a continuation of a request that we made in the amended 24 budget, which is a postage rate increase. This is a slide that you saw before in that prior hearing, and we're essentially asking for the same amount that we asked for in the amended. What you'll note in the presentation, if you look at the red line items, is for the first 6 months, we're already $332,405 over our budget for mail as it relates to mailing out things like license reinstatements. We have recently brought on the mobile driver's license, which we do a verification process and send a letter to the customer after they have onboarded with that program. Super speeder. Obviously, you get the permanent card. I do want to address this because I think you may have heard, or if any of the members are also was at a hearing on yesterday, reference to substitute to House Bill 1100, where we are hoping to partner with the Department of Revenue in just a simple postcard that we do send out, which we send about 40,000, a little bit more than 40,000 of those postcards per month. We are hoping that we can, over time, get customers to consent to receiving that, if that bill is successful, to receiving that at their consent virtually or electronically. Again, that's a small fragment of the overall request. So that will only, I just wanted to be forthright about it, that will only help us. It won't necessarily in any way reduce the amount of need that we need for current postage rate increases because of the Postal Service increasing their prices. It'll just hopefully help us to stay whole. Again, I wanted to recognize that because, again, if at some point it is discussed in another meeting, I want there to be clarity about the two requests. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the request for the department. Certainly, I am here to answer any questions that you may have or committee members may have on behalf of the agency.
Thank you, Commissioner. Couple of quick things, and then we got a question up here, but I'll start. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate the presentation. I'll start with kind of where you finished with the piece of legislation that might be going through. I may or may not be presenting that myself on behalf of Chairman Perkle. Postage has definitely become something I've been focused on as these rates continue to go up every single month. So I do look forward to working with you in the Department of Revenue on that, so we can get some people shifted over to electronic communications to save the state what looks to be a heap of money over time with all the agencies involved. Question on 21.2.10. Some people might see a closure of a center and see only a reduction of $3,000, and it might raise the question of how are we only saving $3,000. So can you address that?
Yes, sir, I can. That line item is a request essentially to close the Helena location. If you might remember, there was an appropriation roughly 2 sessions ago in which we are going to be opening a new CDL site in Hazelhurst, which is at the county just next door. And closing that, first of all, in past years, not so much in current years, but in past years, the department has been very fortunate to have the support of local governments in the buildings that we are part of. So the majority of the expenses related to the Helena location are expenses such as, the building and the maintenance of that building is borne by the local government. We do put equipment in those locations, but typically it's the cost of electricity that we pay a portion of as we are co-located there with another state agency that helps us to get to that cost reduction.
Thank you for that, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
One more question from me before we move on to Chairman Gamble. But on the you may not have this in front of you, but on the cloud server, you mentioned the contract. Do you happen to know how long that contract is good for?
That contract is currently good through it is to be we'll have a RFP. If you might remember in the minute you made a request to hire a consultant to help us with a request for proposal that we'll be putting together. But the current contract ends in July 1st, June 30th of 2027. So again, having the information in the cloud, regardless of the vendor that we use, will still be necessary. So this is not a cost that we think will be a cost that's specific to a vendor. It's Georgia's data. It's just managed on behalf of a third party.
Understood. Appreciate that. Where's the Gamble?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, we appreciate you being with us today and appreciate your leadership. My question, I guess, is also along the same lines of this data center. It's fresh on a lot of our minds because we had a discussion yesterday about the data centers in Georgia. And I don't know all the technical side of what the requirements would be to store our data. And I'm sure that we've got a great deal going now, but it just seems to me that we could look at some of the data center providers here in the state of Georgia, if that was even an option, and it may not be, but I'm happy to talk to you offline to learn a little bit more how that's procured. I don't know, GTA may have a lot to do with that. And then again, it may be all on you. I'm not sure, but that just came to mind because we're debating data centers here in Georgia as we speak. And I just was going to mention that.
I appreciate that, and certainly I'm glad to talk to you about that further on offline. I would just like to note that these data centers, again, they are in this case we're trying to move from data centers and move into the cloud so that we have a little bit more scalability, reliability, and security as it relates to our data. So we're trying to move out of data centers, but they come with the contract that I just mentioned that ends in 2027. But again, as I informed the chairman, regardless of whoever wins that contract, our expectation would be the same of any vendor that would eventually become Georgia's provider of what we call card production services, which is our ability to not just produce the card, but more importantly, to store the data and ensure that people's information is secure. That's going to exist regardless of whether or not it's with this particular company or another company in the future.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. Members of the committee, any other questions? Well, we're going to let you go do the good work for the people. I appreciate you being here this morning, and we will see you very soon.
Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to, let's see, move on to my good friend, Commissioner Rayburn. DNR, come on down. Bring him back up. I like it.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As we come to you to discuss DNR's budget, I'd like to say happy Valentine's Day, and we love each and every one of you from the bottom of our heart.
For members up here, page 16, section 34.
Yes, sir. We'll be on pages 16 through 18 as we move forward. First, again, let me say thank you to Governor Kemp and Director Dunn for the work that they've done in preparing these recommendations that DNR is wholly in favor of. And we thank you for your support with our amended request as they're now in the Senate, and hope that you can support our request here in the FY25 budget as well. You do see, and we are very appreciative of the 4% cost of living adjustment for all of our employees. Know how far that goes with recruitment and retention of our current staff. So thank you for that. And then in addition, just for the sake of time, you'll see the billing adjustments for the GTA, DOAS, and the merit system increases as well there as well. On page 16, item 34.1.4 under the Coastal Resources Division, you'll see a cost savings of $31,000 by eliminating landline phones. And then under our departmental administration on line item 34.2.4, you see an addition of $171,000 for an increase in rental rates for the GBA, the Georgia Building Authority. Item 34.4.1 under the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program reflects a true up from FY23 collections, leading to a reduction of $215,000 and $215,316 in that program. And then if you look to page 17 under our law enforcement division, line item 34.6.4 is an increase of a little over $1 million to provide the additional $3,000 targeted salary enhancement for all of our post-certified law enforcement officers. Line item 34.6.5 is an increase of $577,000, and this would allow us to hire 6 additional game wardens in that division. The only change reflected in our Parks, Recreation, and Historic Sites division is found in line item 34.7.5, and that's a $55,000 reduction in funds. And then staying on page 17 in the Wildlife Resources division, item 34.9.5 is an increase of funds in the amount of $152,995. And this would fund a training coordinator in that division. And this is also a carryover from our amended request in 24. Line item 34.9.6 shows a cost savings measure that will replace $118,000 in state funds with federal funds. And what we're doing here is merging 2 programs, our stream survey team and our freshwater diversity team. And that savings is reflected in the reduction or the elimination of a program manager. Line item 34.9.7 is another cost savings measure, consolidating our hunting and fishing regulations into one publication, and that will save us around $101,000. Line item 34.9.8 is a true up and shows an increase in funds for the Wildlife Endowment Trust Fund in the amount of a little over $73,000. And then lastly, line items 34.9.9 and 34.9.10 are yes items to utilize funds from the Wildlife Endowment Trust Fund for fish hatchery renovation and to expand access to our deer management assistant program by hiring 3 additional biologists in that program. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions or go into detail with any of these, but that concludes our budget presentation, and we do appreciate your favorable consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I think we have Chairman Smith with a question.
Good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
Thank you for your presentation. I think maybe for the people who are listening, to explain a little bit more, line item 34.9.10, which is the deer management assisted program, and how serious that is for the state of Georgia.
So currently, the Deer Management Assistant Program is focused at serving private lands people, and it's a program where we provide a lot of technical expertise. We put plans together for a particular property depending on size, but it's basically to assist hunters and landowners with deer management on private land, and that includes stuff like education on feral hog invasions that the people have on their private lands. It also goes into, I know crop depredation is in many of your districts is a big issue. And this is also a way to say on a particular piece of property, you need to reduce your population by X, Y, Z, whatever that number should be in order to meet that carrying capacity. Excuse me. Currently, we have 3 biologists that cover our whole state in the DMAP program, as we call it. And we would like to increase that or double that.
Thank you. Ms. Chair, may I add one statement to that? I think for everybody to understand, deer management now is an extremely serious problem all over the state of Georgia. I'm even hearing from people who live in urban areas who are meeting a lot of deer at night because they're driving home. And so I'm glad that there's focus in the budget and in your department to deal with that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chairman Smith. Any other members of the committee? You can get off easy today.
Hey, save all your hard questions for this next presenter.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
He does that routinely, Madam Chair.
All right. With that, we will roll right into EPD section, staying on page 16 and 17. Director.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Cowan. I'm the Director of the Georgia Environmental Protection Division under the Department of Natural Resources. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all today about EPD's budget request. I also want to echo Commissioner Rabin and thanking Governor Kemp and Director Dunn for their hard work preparing our budgets this year. And we believe that these resources and fundings are adequate to us to succeed through this fiscal year. I look forward to working with the committee and the General Assembly as a whole as we go through this budget process. And as the chairman said, we're on 16 through 18 within the DNR's budget. First, under line 34.3.1, an increase of $641,795 for the statewide cost of living adjustment for our employees. We thank the governor and OPB director and hopefully y'all as well as we go through this. This is the cost of our state funded positions. The total cost of the COLA will be approximately $2.7 million, but EPD will fund our non-state funded positions through several flexible grants and other state fee funded sources. Next, under line 34.3.2 through 34.3.5 is $430,489 for our statewide adjustments for a Department of Administrative Services agency risk premiums, GBA's rental rates, GTA's rates, and our merit system assessment billing. Then go on, we have under line 34.3.6, an increase of $10,057 to provide an additional $3,000 pay increase for EPD's 2 law enforcement officers. Then under line 34.3.7, we have a decrease of $172,290 for the transfer of 2 paralegal positions to the Department of Law. EPD has been responsible for the administration of these positions for many years, but they have always been managed by the Department of Law. So moving the positions creates efficiencies for both EPD and the Department of Law. Next, under line 34.3.8, an increase of $350,617 for 5 new positions to help with agricultural water withdrawal permitting activities. This funding will provide salaries for 3 environmental compliance specialists, 1 GIS specialist, and 1 data management specialist to be located in our Tifton office. These positions will work to help reduce our existing permitting and compliance backlogs, improve customer service, and allow for better data management on the many ag wells in Southwest Georgia and across the state. There are approximately 3,000 backlog permitting actions and about 1,500 backlog compliance and technical assistance cases we're working through. And then once we get through these, and we'll have new permitting programs after we work our way out of the 2012 well moratorium in Southwest Georgia. Then on line 34.5, line 1, we have a true up of the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund to align with budget collections in fiscal year 23. This is a reduction of $2,813,801. The fiscal year 24 appropriation was based on an unusually high year of collections. So this new budget of 14.7 million is more in line with a normal collection year. Then under 34.8 line 1, we have a true up to the Solid Waste Trust Fund to align budgets with fiscal year 23 collections, which resulted in a minor increase of $200,250. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions on EPD's budget.
Thank you, Griffin. I think we have Chairman Earl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir, for being with us this morning. I just want to comment on the additional 5 positions in Tifton for the permitting. That's a great thing for our area, and that is much needed. So appreciate you putting that in the budget.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. And this may not even be in your lane, but I have to ask it anyway, because you talked environmental protection and this hazard waste trust fund. What department, or is it yours, that deals with soil impediments, the illegal dumping of soil impediments and on farms and things like that? Because I see most of your stuff is almost like housekeeping, is salaries, rent, and things like that. Do we have anything that address that, or is that another department?
No, sir. It's in within the Environmental Protection Division. We have a whole group of district operations sub offices across the state that takes in complaints and works on illegal dumping and on all properties across the state. So we do have officers that handle that, and that is in our purview. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're working with Department, if I may, Mr. Chairman, with Department of Ag, did you guys sort of work together
On the soil amendments?
Soil
Yes, sir.
amendments,
Okay,
right.
soil amendments is first in line is with the Department of Ag, but when we have issues that may be over applying or a potential fish kill or something, we go in with working with the Department of Agriculture to get that hopefully, cleaned up and fixed and go back to utilizing it properly. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Your overall, during COVID and that period of time, you lost several key employees due to all that attrition. Are you receiving sufficient funds to build up where you need to within your different departments? Because in the end, if you don't have those resources, we're not able to help Georgia citizens. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Yes, ma'am. Through the cost of living adjustments over the last 2 years and hopefully this year, which is unprecedented. I've been with DNR for 34 years and we didn't see a lot of those in the last 15 or 20 years. And with the STEM increases that former Director Dunn was able to get through the legislature and the governor, and last year our vacancy rate was about 22, 23 at the end of that time, and we're down about 10 or 11 now. So we are having improvements, but we still continually try to recruit and keep our good employees. We always try to recruit new engineers, biologists, geologists, and also it's a constant struggle, but we are better than we were a couple of years ago. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. One additional comment. We seem to be the training ground for all the other areas that want your employees once you train them. So I hope we can keep them. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Chairman Smith, that's a great lead. And I was going to ask you if you kind of keep tabs on where we lose people to.
Yes, sir. A lot of the people are lost to the US EPA Region 4 right down the street from us, and we lose a lot to private industry as well. Yes, sir. We train them and they go out into private industry. Yes, sir. Consulting and large businesses. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the director? Yeah, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, We're going to move on to GTA. Maybe we're on page 5. Miss Thomas, come on down. It's Thomas and Friends, excuse me.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's good to see you guys on this fine Valentine's Wednesday. I brought with me 2 of my team members that I'm so honored to work with, Steve Hodges, my CISO, and Kevin Stanford, my CFO. Good morning, I'm Shanzia Thomas, and I have the honor of serving as your CIO for the state of Georgia and the executive director for GTA. On page 5 of your tracking sheet under section 12.11.1 and 12.11.2, you will find 2 requests for the FY25 budget for GTA. That's a bit strange because GTA is never in the budget. So we're here today. Line 12.11.1 calls for GTA to utilize existing funds of $9 million and increase funds to enhance and standardize cybersecurity services for the executive branch agencies, totaling funds $24 million. As you know, the cybersecurity landscape has changed. Many of our agencies find that their security staff and resources are stretched thin, trying to meet today's challenges. To better protect our state, we are requesting the $15 million to be used to expand our cyber footprint beyond the agencies that are a part of our GETS, our Shared IT Services Program, which you know that's only 14 agencies. We've got to do a better job in expanding that scope. These funds will help GTA take important steps to extend protection to all executive branch agencies. Among the tools are endpoint detection and response, that's your servers and your laptops, security incident information management, and vulnerability management. That's our system scanning and remediation for vulnerabilities. These proactive measures align with our whole state approach to cybersecurity. Moving on to line 12.11.2, you will see a request for an increase in telecommunication and infrastructure rates to offset increased cost of services that are provided to agencies by GTA. While no funds are appropriated to GTA in this line item, these funds will appear in numerous times throughout the FY budget in other agencies, and you've heard some of those this morning. We do not make this request lightly. GTA has maintained our current rates for over 8 years. I'm sure many of us would still like to pay 2016 prices on everything, but we can't. So not only have we held our rates flat for 8 years, but we also are lowering our admin. We have also lowered our admin fee from 8.25 down to 5% in 2020. We have worked diligently to keep rates low, protecting taxpayer dollars, while providing the high quality services that our customers deserve. However, this increased cost by our vendors have forced us to adjust our rates. Of the 590 items in our service catalog, the rates of only 374 are increasing. 77 of those are decreasing, and 139 of those rates are remaining the same. So we're not increasing rates on everything. My team will work closely with agencies to help them manage the use of their technology services. We will continue to work tirelessly to find cost-saving efficiencies whenever and wherever possible. We appreciate Governor Kemp's support for our efforts by recommending these additional funds. I thank you for your time and consideration, and we open the floor for any questions.
Thank you for that. Members of the committee. I think everybody's looking to get to dinner.
Okay. All right. Well, we
All right.
appreciate your time. If there's any
I-
questions afterwards, feel free to come to GTA or reach out to us.
Can I ask, since we're at the table?
Yes.
How long, if you'll pass the mic, how long we been with the agency?
I started with GTA in 2005, so yep, my entire career.
We appreciate you being here. Yourself?
And I've been with GTA a little over a year now.
Okay.
And how long with the state?
Yeah, prior to that, I spent 22 years at the Department of Revenue.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for being here. Appreciate what you do for the state.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner. UAS Section 12, page 4.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's good to see you again. My name is Rebecca Sullivan. I serve as the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services. Thank you for the invitation to be here today to speak about the recommendations for DOAS's FY25 budget. Our budget information is reflected in Section 12, pages 4 through 5 of the tracking document. There were several changes recommended that I will speak to. I did want to take a moment and thank you for your support of the recommendations for DOAS's amended budget. And we do hope we can count on your support for the recommendations in the FY25 as well. The first change is reflected on line 12.4.1, which is increased funds to recognize additional revenues from merit system assessments to support statewide human resources initiatives. The total is $884,153. As you all know, DOAS's Human Resources Administration Division administers enterprise-wide human resources programs and provides agencies with the resources and tools to attract, develop, manage, and hopefully retain a high-performing workforce. The HRA division is primarily funded through merit assessments to state agencies, which is calculated based on a percentage of employees' salaries. The governor has recommended an increase in the merit assessment in the FY25 budget to address increasing operational costs to HRA, such as the recent COLAs. Current funding is not sufficient to adequately cover those costs, so we fully support this recommendation, which will allow HRA to continue to provide these enterprise-wide HR services at our current level. The next change is in section 12.5. These next two changes pertain to risk management services. And line 12.5.1, the recommendation is to reduce one-time funds to pay negotiated workers' comp settlements in the amount of $2 million. What this line is doing is removing funds that were added to the base budget in FY24. And then finally, line 12.5.2 is to increase insurance premium billings in the liability program for claims related expenses in the amount of $13.3 million. DOAS's liability program we spoke about last time provides insurance for state entities and employees for claims filed against them for actions taken in the course and scope of their employment. We discussed the scope of this program last month, as well as the escalating liability in this program. And as I mentioned then, without additional funding, the liability program is projecting a $41 million deficit by the end of FY26. So to address ongoing expenses, the governor is recommending an increase in insurance premium billings in the liability program in the amount of $13.3 million. This funding is necessary to keep pace with the annually increasing claim costs, as well as to slow the growth in outstanding liability in this program. Those are the three changes recommended for DOAS's FY25 budget. In conclusion, we fully support the governor's recommendation for both HRA and the liability program, and we would be very grateful for your favorable consideration. I want to thank you for your continued support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner, I appreciate you. One just point of commentary really on 12.5.1. Members of the committee, you know, we've with great assistance from the commissioner, we've continued to work towards our backlog of these cases, or these settlements, I should say. So appreciate the reduction in the base. I know that we still have a backlog, and we'll continue to chip away at it, but just appreciate your efforts there, and appreciate the committee continuing to support that effort as well.
Thank you, sir. We have a dedicated team in our risk management services division that works hard to manage these claims.
I appreciate that very much. Members of the committee, anybody else? Commissioner? I think you're free to.
Thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Commissioner King, I see you hiding behind a post back there. Come on. No, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
I've never hit. Sometimes at my own peril.
That's a valid point, Commissioner. I don't know if you heard Gamble up here, but he said if you're hiding, we're all in trouble.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for allowing our team to come and present. Many of these, our presentation is relatively
Page
short,
13.
so I want to open it up and give you all plenty of opportunities to ask questions. I want to, you'll see our mission statement. I always like to, I hope, that you all don't get tired of watching, but this is a consistent mission that makes our whole agency focus on what our purpose is. I want to bring your attention to section 29, beginning on page 13 of your budget report. And, for fiscal year 2025, we are requesting the governor's recommendations for costs associated with pay raises, post-certified officer increases, rent, utility increases, and any other general expenses increase. Second point is a reallocation of almost 1.3 million to the Safety Fire Division from other programs, which will annualize the new positions and equipment needed to execute the mission. And many of y'all, I've told y'all before, this is about putting in building inspectors to focus on existing construction. We focus so much on new construction to make sure that we did not get in the way of economic development projects across the state. But we took some risk on existing building inspections. And so we want to rebalance our agency to make sure that we're not neglectful of our responsibility to take care of existing construction inspections. And then the next point is the continued support for our reinsurance program, which is currently slated at $20 million in the base funding. And we will continue to adjust this number as the new reinsurance program evolves. That is what we're trying to provide relief with Georgia Access, all those fees generated from Georgia Access. And obviously they're set to increase because the state of Georgia will be taking more responsibility over that program. Those fees will go into the reinsurance program and relieving the base budget from that responsibility. So there's a net increase for this year, but it will be relief for future years. And next slide. And as we continue to flourish, being the #1 state for business for a decade, our role as the Office of Insurance Commissioner Safety Fire has never been more vital. With over 1 million new residents and a surge of infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, and businesses, our commitment is to continue ensuring the safety and well-being of every Georgian. That commitment is unwavering. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will pause and open it up for any questions you or members of this committee have for me or my team.
Commissioner, I appreciate you. Members of the committee. All right. Representative Mitchell.
Mr. Commissioner, I have some firsthand knowledge of your department doing some great work, been very responsive to the citizens. Mr. Chairman, I think his requests are not high enough for the great work that he is doing. But relatedly to that, I had a constituent that had a complaint about their insurer was not responsive to a claim they had during the pandemic. She just recently mentioned it to me. She thought that she had no other recourse when they just denied. Is it too late for her to file a claim?
It is never too late, sir. That is a purpose. This is why Georgia has an elected insurance commissioner, is to make sure that we're responsive to every consumer in Georgia.
Great.
Send them our way, so we'll be happy to respond.
Thank you so very much.
Representative Mitchell, I'm certain he will accept a personal check from you. So you'll just make sure he knows where to make it.
Yeah,
out.
we'll just need some support and some other legislation is bubbling up through both chambers. So we look forward to having that conversation as well.
Appreciate that very much. Chairman Gamble.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good to see you as always, and I appreciate your leadership there at the department. I hated that Rebecca Sullivan has left. I know she has a pretty big line item increase for liability insurance, and I can't sit here and wonder how that has happened. I think we know.
We know the answer to that.
We
question.
we do. Several agencies before you have had the increase for GBA, and I understand that rental rates go up, and I can understand that. I guess what I'm curious about is each line item has talked about Capitol Police, and I know when I've been over to your office, it's the security out there at the front. But is it because the Capitol Police respond if there's an issue to your office or these other agencies? Like, what exactly is driving the increase for Capitol Police that's on that line item? Because it just doesn't.
I wish I knew how to answer the question, because
And that really may be a GBA question.
We have our own investigators, and so there's plenty of protection in our office. So
right.
Both between arson investigators and insurance fraud investigators, I think we can hold off an incursion into our office at least for a couple of hours until we can get Georgia State Patrol to show up.
Very good. Thank you.
Chairman Prince.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. Listen, you mentioned earlier somewhere in your presentation about the, for lack of better words, and I could be wrong, reinsure, I guess, when you talked about
reinsurance,
the,
yes, sir.
Reinsurance piece. So you talked about not being able or focusing a lot on the economic development piece and making sure the inspections for those new buildings and things go up. Therefore, you may have lost some time on, like a better words, going back to the old buildings, making sure they're good. And I appreciate your effort to do that. Is there a big delta there? And how long will it be for you to catch, for lack of better words, catch up on those old inspections in order to make sure you're online?
I probably need to do some little research to give you a more accurate. Our focus has been so much, especially with the tremendous amount of growth going on across Georgia, that we didn't want to sacrifice the support for communities, especially for economic development projects and jobs created. We did not want to sacrifice that. Now, we relied a lot on our local partners that can do a number of those inspections, contracting some, but it's time now to rebalance and to make sure that we have a sustainable balance, not only dealing with new construction, but not neglecting existing construction. And that's why we're reallocating money, moving money from one side of our agency to another side of our agency so we can hire building inspectors. The same challenge occurs that you've asked of many of the commissioners coming before you, retention. We train, we go and recruit young men and women out of our technical colleges of Georgia. We train them to be elevator inspections, boiler inspectors. And of course, private industry comes and gobbles them up. There's no way we could compete so effectively. So the only other alternative is to work a healthy cycle of going after new talent, training them, developing them, put them to work, getting them to have experience, and then understanding they're going to, ultimately they're supporting the growth in Georgia. And so we need to dig into a little bit more into the data to tell you how much of the delta is. But it's significant because we made a deliberate decision to not sacrifice growth instead of just basically, because right now growth, as you can imagine with inflation, time and materials cost, it could kill a new project going. And so that's why we deliberately made the decision to focus on, but not to completely abandoning existing. So we're triaging that, but it's just now time. And that's why our request reflects that. It's now time to rebalance our agency.
Chairman, you're.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate the job you do. Appreciate you being with us this morning. From previous presentations, one of your priorities has been insurance fraud in Georgia, and certainly fraud is a real problem in Georgia. Just tell us a little bit about how your staff to address that is, and if it's adequate, and how's that going for you, basically?
Sir, when we took over our agency, our insurance fraud investigators was not competent, was not qualified to do the job. Most of them had been fired from other agencies for lying. And if you can understand that an investigator cannot testify in court if he's been proven to be a liar. So we had to clean house. We brought a professional team that started, and instead of coming and giving you, I want so many folks based on on a very limited calculus, we decided to incrementally come to you as data on our cases increase, or as we got a better handle, is come and ask yearly, small but managing that growth. I spoke to our other colleagues in other law enforcement agencies, and God bless GBI, God bless all these other agencies. None of them have the appetite to take on insurance fraud. There's a hard, complicated, technical cases. So you have to have a special skill set. And Georgia's number 2 in the nation in insurance fraud. And why do Georgians care about this? Because it's between $400 and $700 of additional cost per family of the cost to Georgians as a result of it. So now we're going, and we're not hiring agents and keeping them here in Atlanta. We're hiring agents, experienced investigators who are retiring, or agents that live in local communities across Georgia, in establishing a relationship with local sheriffs, police chiefs, and district attorneys so we can help and stay in the local community. Oh, by the way, you don't have to pay rent for them to have a desk here in Atlanta, which, as you can imagine, Georgia Building Authority has some pretty high rates when it comes to rent. Not whining too much about that, but just sheriffs and police chiefs have given us the space to house our agents in the local communities where they're closer to the witnesses, closer to victims, and helping district attorneys. And we started to make a dent. Expect us to come with gradual increases as we see the demand. I have no interest in creating a kingdom of badge holders and gun toters in our agency. That to me would be more hurtful to the overall purpose. So as data comes in, the challenge we have is not only is an enforcement issue, but it's also an educational issue. Most people, especially young generations, don't see insurance fraud as a crime. And so we have to change that mindset. And so it's an education piece of this, because we all pay as a result of this. And so, so if it was easy, the Air Force would be doing it. That's my Army plug, by the way. So just that. So we're trying to be moderate and not coming and asking you for something that we cannot prove that there's actually a need for. And so expect us to come in gradually and either increase, but we will continue putting these agents across Georgia. That we have plenty of coverage here in Atlanta. Is the rest of the state which needs that talent. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner, I do not see any other questions, so I appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity. And you all have been incredible in supporting, repairing this agency to where we're at now. We're very proud of where we're at right now, and continue serving our great state.
Appreciate your efforts.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Slight change. I hope everybody's okay with. We're gonna have the secretary come up. Secretary of State, section 43, page 23 for
Good morning.
those of us following along. Page 23.
Hi, Maggie. Okay, Chairman. We ready?
We're ready when you are.
Okay, well, good morning, Chairman and committee members. It's good to be with you today. So we are on page 23 of the sheet that's in front of you. And for the sake of brevity, I'll go ahead and mention that across all of our divisions, you'll see the same cost of living adjustment increase in DOAS fees and GBA rental increases that the other state agencies have mentioned, and we request that you support these cost increases. Number one, in corporations, there's one notable exception. Our corporations division is funded entirely by expedite fees that businesses can opt into. We also request that you add authorization language in the budget to reflect the decision to provide the cost of living increases to all the corporation division employees who meet the qualifications outlined by the governor. So to give this some context, we have already funded $586,000 in raises in the past few years, and this raise will be an additional $82,000. That's a total of $668,000. None of that was funded by the state. It was funded by expedite fees. And the challenge that we have is the top of our line revenue has decreased by $2.5 million. And so therefore the model is not sustainable. And we would like to request that the General Assembly consider funding this division with state dollars in the near future. To just give you some perspective, our corporations division brings in approximately $100 million, and it's been run exclusively off the expedite fees to date. With that in mind, we also request that you consider funding a capital project to enhance and replace the aging corporation filing system. We can't do that on our own. Since all the regular fees go to the general fund, it's not possible for us to fully fund a capital project of this magnitude with expedite fees. The total cost of this project is approximately $6 to $6.5 million. And a portion of that can be covered with the expedite fees. We just don't have enough there to cover the whole thing. So we have in there a one-time cost of $3.275 million in state funds for the build out and management of the project. It is a necessary expenditure to allow us better to serve the people and the businesses of Georgia in the years ahead. This build out will also enhance fraud protections to prevent inappropriate changes to existing corporate filings. So really what we have going on here is we have more corporations. We're over 1.4 million. We have population growth. We're just seeing more growth. Plus we have an aging, software system. So all those are coming together. And like I said, since 100% of the organization is funded by expedite fees, there's just not enough expedite fees to cover that. Next, we go to elections with the governor's recommendations. In election, there are two additional recommendations in the governor's budget. The first is the $135,000 to cover the rising cost of postage. I think you all saw recently the 2 cents. Well, when you have millions and millions of folks, it adds up to $135,000. Over the years, we've seen a jump from 700,000 mailings to 900,000 mailings annually. That's our population growth again, and higher registration numbers. These mailings are vital to ensure that Georgia's voting list is clean and up to date so Georgia can remain a top state for election integrity. Because we do this, we are recognized by many nonprofits as having the cleanest voter list in the country. The governor's recommendation also includes 5 additional staff members for the elections division. We're very grateful for that. These positions are funded through a combination of existing funds and additional funds. So existing and additional funds coming together to help support that. The elections division is a well-run team, but we welcome the addition of new talent to be able to maintain a high level of service and security. But we could use even more employees. I think to give you some context, Georgia right now in our elections division, we have about 25 folks. North Carolina has 72, and Virginia has even more. And we have more population in both those states. We're not saying we have to triple. We're just saying, can we get 5 more? And the governor's given that in his budget, and we're very grateful for that. That gets where we need to be for this coming year, 2024, which is, as you know, a very critical year. So for elections on additional staff, beyond those recommended by the governor, we are requesting additional staff who are focused on election security and helping the counties run effective elections. Because if there's an issue that you typically have during elections, it happens at the county level. And we want to be able to, that we can support that, come alongside them, and also have additional oversight to be able to combat future threats to elections and to ensure voter confidence in our system. I think the most important thing with elections, and I've been saying this recently, is I think that trust is the real gold standard. And so what we do, we focused in on making sure we have fair, honest, secure, and accurate elections, but also trust. When we build trust into the system, I think that brings society together. We know it's polarized, and the more we can do that, and these positions would really allow us to help facilitate that. They'd be permanent full-time positions ranging from a chief information security officer down to an election security records manager. And a full list of those requested positions can be seen on the screen. We also have additional security measures in elections. The cost of additional security measures to prepare for upcoming elections is listed on the screen. The cost of parallel monitoring is part of my 4-point plan for election security, which includes testing before, during, and after the election, as well as encouraging voters to check their ballots. The other requests all stem from projects suggested by the members of the General Assembly to help enhance our already great system. QR code readers began as a project to help the blind and visually impaired to be able to independently verify their paper ballots. Our intent was originally to research and pilot in the 2024 elections. The rest of these are improvements for the voters, including getting credit for voting faster and having an enhanced experience with My Voter page and the online absentee ballot request portal. As you see on the equipment upgrade cost, one of the larger requests is listed on the equipment upgrade project cost. This would allow our office to install updated software on all voting equipment statewide and acceptance test the equipment after the installation. It includes the cost of employees, travel, and hardware upgrades. This will enable the software to be installed and acceptance tested in approximately 6 to 9 months. These dollars will be necessary if the General Assembly wants to move to a different style of ballot and enhance the security of the system. The last 2 election requests include voter education and open records software. The voter education request would encourage voters to check their ballots and focus on increasing voters' confidence in Georgia's voting system. That came from a specific request of some of your House colleagues who the Speaker had our office have those discussions over the summer months. In the past, the federal program, the Help of America Vote Act dollars, have been used for this purpose, but those funds will not be available for this upcoming cycle. And the open records request software is a front-end one-time cost. There will be a smaller ongoing cost, but we do not know that cost yet because we must get bids from multiple vendors. This change would allow for the open records team to be more efficiently for process requests and with less disruption to our other divisions. We just have additional, in this day of high scrutiny and controversy and polarization, we just have additional records requests all the time. Up next is the investigations division. In addition to the COLA, there's also a one-time $3,000 salary supplement for our post-certified investigators. These investigators provide support to all of our divisions, but are vital to the elections and professional licensing division. On line 43.3.5, we also provide funds for 4 additional investigators, which would help meet the growing need for investigators in our elections, professional licensing, securities, charities, and corporations division. Our current staffing level and an increase in claims of voter fraud has extended timelines for investigations. And as we've seen, delays in investigations can have a bad effect, a negative effect on voter confidence in the outcomes of elections. And on the licensing side, it could lead to health and safety issues for Georgians who need the services of licensed professionals. Next up is office administration. In section 43.4 in office administration, we have no additional requests beyond those 4 cost increases seen across the budget. In professional licensing, section 43.5, we do have 1 investigator that is paid out of the licensing division, which is why you'll see funds for the targeted salary supplements for post-certified employees. I know you've heard this before, but we are requesting additional full-time staff in the fiscal 25 budget. We are requesting 4 additional employees, 1 analyst that is dedicated to the nursing board, and 3 analysts that can be redirected to any board based on need. This request takes us back to the positions that were the early version of the fiscal year 24 budget. The need for these positions is the increased volume of applications and renewals. The levels of staff in this division have remained mostly unchanged, even as the number of applicants and licensees has grown significantly over the years. For example, in the nurses, we have over 50,000 nurses in the last 5.5 years. That's the kind of growth we're seeing all over all licensed professionals, population growth, and professional growth. We have been working to modernize the division with new software, but limited staff availability means that we have staff covering multiple jobs, which is slowing down licensing and renewals. We've been doing an excellent job of bringing the office into the 21st century, but we need more hands on deck. A specific information request was made by Chairman Alan Powell from Regulated Industries on what a more fully funded PLB would look like. It has been shared with the House and Senate Appropriations staffs and with the Senate's Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee. It came out to $2.8 million to add additional staff to each of our 7 trades and professional licensing board. It would get getting licensing done more quickly and reflect the growth within our state. It's not an official ask, so we try to be as frugal and realistic with you, but the information has been requested by your colleagues, and we wanted to make sure you are aware of it. So to give you some perspective again, our office gets less than $9 million in state dollars to run that division, and the budget has been essentially flat since Governor Kemp was Secretary Kemp. That's 5.5, 6 years ago. We bring in fees and fines and over $24 million a year and run it on 9. On our securities division on page 24, page 34, section 43.6, regarding the securities division, we have no additional requests beyond the statewide cost increases. And here I do want to give you a shout out to our securities division. We have added 5 financial literacy programs that we have really are offering statewide. One of those, the first one we did was She Leads. Then we had financial literacy for high school students, because we believe if before any high school student ever leaves a high school, they should have a great grounding in civics and also financial literacy before they sign for that first car note and their student loan if they need one. We think financial literacy is key. Then we have one for military fitness. We think it's great for military families retired. Yes, Chairman, giving a shout out, but we really appreciate our veterans, and I know all of you do too. And then we're excited that we just contacted yesterday by the Department of Corrections, Female Corrections Institute wants us to come in and teach our program in a female correctional institute, our financial literacy program. So those are 5 programs we have and no increase. And I'm really, and you should be proud of, your state employees that are doing hard work for fellow Georgians, making the state better. And we're really proud of our securities division. Our attached agencies, on that, the governor has recommended the same cost of living adjustments in fiscal year 25, as well as adjustments to regular billings. The Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission includes the $3,000 for their post-certified investigator. The professional engineers and land surveyors have a recommendation for additional staff in the form of 2 investigators, 1 analyst, and associated cost. Gentlemen, lady, thank you so much for hearing us out. And if you have any questions, we'd love to be able to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, for being here. Appreciate you very much. Members, just for speaking purposes, obviously there was a lot of information in the slides. We're going to get that printed out so that we can review that as a committee as we move forward. I appreciate mentioning all those, but obviously we'll have to take each and every one of them in the consideration as we move forward. So members will have that to you so that we can take a deeper dive. With that, we'll just start with elections. You said it, voter confidence is paramount. It doesn't matter what side you're on or what affiliation you're with. If you don't have confidence in the elections, then we have to make adjustments. So appreciate the committee for supporting some the recommendations we did in the amended to be able to audit these ballots, even if they have a QR code, like as you mentioned, if that changes in the future, we'll have to deal with that. So appreciate the committee supporting me on that decision. Appreciate the efforts there. Licensure, I know you touched on that. It's I think, I say all the time, this portion of the budget is the very not sexy portion of the budget. But when it comes to constituent services, I love being on this subcommittee because we work very closely with all the different agencies, and 90% of our phone calls is going to be about one of our agencies. So we're able to or help our constituents. I would, and no blame, but I think licensure right now for us is, we're getting blown up. Have one for you as soon as we leave here. I'm gonna make sure you guys get in your hands. At least this one, admittedly, is a little bit on their side of the court, but we really need to keep looking at that. We're going to look at that. We're going to take a deeper dive. As you mentioned, we've asked the question. I appreciate providing some information on how we might be able to assist, help me help you. Let me say it like that. So, but licensure is a big deal. I think, like I said, we're getting hit pretty hard on that right now, and we need to know how we can help our constituents get through that process a little bit better. And I appreciate your efforts in doing that as well.
Thank you.
Chairman Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your presentation today. Going back to the elections portion, you mentioned something about the open records division that you're trying to, and you came up about, I think, about a $60,000, but you still say it's still out for bid. That number, 60,000, is just no more, not more than, or how was that guessed?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
good deal.
it's, we can't exceed our allocation.
There you go. Good deal.
Yes.
And I just like to echo some of the chairman's comments about the licensing board. I had the opportunity to work with you this summer, and man, this is something we have to fix. And I hope personnel is that answer, but I know you got some other things that are working that we'll reveal later. But thanks again for that opportunity, because I learned more than I really wanted to know about licensing. But being in Augusta, I wish I could get on that composite side too, but that's another story. Thank you.
Hey, Chairman
Well,
Prince.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want to comment to that, but if you want to get on a composite board, I'm not the person that puts those on, so I'll let you handle that one. But we're grateful for you being on our committee looking at licensing reform. So we want to streamline licensing, and there's several bills that are working their way through the General Assembly. So we're really grateful for that. Also, we are updating the software, and we did that in tranches. So we didn't do that for all the groups. It was like the first third, working through any of those, really changing from one software system that was 20 years old to a new system. So that's really important. And then really it gets down to just having additional human resources. Just because, like I said, for nursing, we have over 50,000 nurses. The system will make us more efficient and also help, we believe, people in the process. Once we iron out all those questions, those introductory bugs that people sometimes have with this new system. But we think that'll allow us more throughput per hour. But when you have 50,000 new nurses and it's happening on all the boards, additional HR really would help. And so really those three areas coming together, but license reform is something that we're really grateful for, and we support your efforts in that.
I specifically appreciate how you phrase that, the opportunity to work with when we have issues. We get that opportunity, unfortunately, sometimes too many times. But Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here with us this morning. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I've had the same issue with constituents about license and license renewals. And it's just a real problem for our constituents. And recently got a call from an individual that sold his personal care home on the 3rd of January and just had a simple question. If he had to do an annual corporate renewal, and has had a lot of trouble getting through to the department, and keeps getting, high call volume messages and things like that. And, I would love to work with you guys to help try to solve this issue. I'm sure it's a staffing issue, maybe it's some software issues, but we would love to work with you to help solve these issues because there is a level of frustration out there. And Sam has worked. I appreciate the job he's done when I contact him to get these issues resolved. But I'm all for helping you guys try to resolve these issues that confront you.
Thank you, Chairman. And as it relates to corporations, it's really capacity. It's with the numbers of corporations. The good thing is we have more corporations in Georgia than we've ever had before. We're breaking records on that. That's entrepreneurs, starting out, with one person, two person, whatever that is, starting small with big dreams. And that's a good thing. But also we just had a huge growth in that and really virtually the same manpower. And it just gets down to capacity issues. We're looking at how to expand that with updated technology, and we're working on a solution for that. And, that is something that hopefully would really have that happen this coming year.
Good segue to where I was going to head. I know that this particular line item is dealing with elections and mailing the rising cost of postage. I may have heard me earlier in the day. I appreciate, so much of the things that we can do with the Secretary of State is online and it is electronic. Just kind of want to encourage you guys to continue, like many of the other departments, to find any way that we can cut down on that. Again, I understand that this line item is different, but in any opportunity that we have to make it electronic, where we don't fall subject to postage continuing to increase month after month, I would appreciate those efforts as well.
Yeah, the purpose of the mailings is really to have to mail that to someone's address, and then, do you still live here? Check the mark. If they don't get it back, but we already know that they have. Just so you know, we're really pleased that we are now partnered with the Department of Driver Services. We're getting people's driving when they get a driver's license in any other 49 states and District of Columbia. We get information through DDS, and so we now know that you've got a driver's license, say Montana, but you haven't updated your voter rolls here, so we can reach out to you and find out, why did you do that? Do you still live here, or have you moved to Montana? And that's why we have those mailings, to keep that list clean and accurate, because we know that breeds really confidence in that process. And we want to try and take as many of those issues off the table for you, because you're going to get bombarded with calls. We understand it's a 50-50 state and it's very contentious. And we know that this year, wherever we can restore confidence, and that's making sure we have that mailing to do that. And I don't control the post office, and I don't know if anyone does. So it's DC, and what can we say? I just love how we do things here in Georgia. We have surpluses, we know how to balance a budget, and it's never been a better place to raise your family or build your business.
Couldn't agree more on that. And again, I do appreciate the further explanation. Certainly understand this line item just in general and other subject matters.
We hear you.
Any opportunity we have to save on postage, like a dog on a bone with that right now. So I want to just get a roll of forever stamps, as I said, I think the other day, and anyway.
I would give you a compliment. I find the General Assembly are fiscal tightwads, and we like that. As a taxpayer, I think Georgians like that too. This is not DC, and so we try to use technology where we can do that to reduce cost and improve really our response to our customer, which is you and also every taxpayer in the state of Georgia.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't see any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minnie.
We're going to Department of Labor. I'm waiting patiently, and I appreciate y'all being here. The commissioner couldn't be here, but
yes, if I know my commissioner, and I think I do, he's up in DC shaking the trees for some federal money and meeting with our congressional delegation. Good morning, committee members and Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Kate Furman. I am the CFO / Chief Operating Officer at Georgia Department of Labor.
Page 15, y'all. I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry.
No.
I do have with me Kyle Fitz, our budget director. I'm delighted he's here with me. I'm a very poor substitute for the commissioner. He's much more dynamic than I am. I tend to be fairly boring.
You're running the show anyway.
Anyway, real quickly, we have one item in the budget that I'm going to let Kyle discuss in a second. I would like to spend just a minute on legislation that we dropped over in the Senate about a week ago. It's Senate Bill 475, sponsored by Senators Hofstadler and Still. And that is a bill that provides that the Georgia Department of Labor could keep 20% of the penalties, interest, and fines related to non-payment of unemployment taxes. Of course, we'd also collect those back taxes and put those in the unemployment trust fund. And the bill does sunset after 2 years. This would be a 2-year request, and would ask that y'all certainly support the legislation. It's a win-win-win, I believe. It's a win for the state in that we get our unemployment employers to actually comply with the law. We also think, and we would like to collect fraudulent payments that have gone out. Back in 2020, we had 15 times the number of claims that we normally have. And so we do believe, as we look back at some of those years in the past, we will find some improper payments to collect on. So would ask just for your support in that. Happy to engage with y'all on that legislation, and certainly have private meetings with you and take a look at that as you would like to. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kyle for the budget piece.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, House Subcommittee. As Kate said, my name is Kyle Fitz. I'm the budget director over at Georgia Department of Labor. I will be skipping over the statewide common budget changes unless you all decide to review those. We are appreciative of the 4% cost of living adjustment, so allow our employees to have that motivation and continue their hard work. On line 32.1.2, that refers to the transfer funds to unemployment insurance to align budget with expenditures, which directly relates to line 32.3.3 to utilize existing funds of 1.9 million and transfer funds from departmental administration of 50,000 and the technical college system of Georgia 409,000 to address appeals hearing cases backlog and improve customer service. So that 1.95 million refers to what was vetoed by the governor in fiscal year 24. This was unvetoed and amended fiscal year 24 and is now being utilized for fiscal year 25 for this purpose. It is extremely important that we do address our appeals backlog hearing cases. As Kate said, we had about 15 times the amount of claims come during the pandemic in 2020. That was about 4.5 million claims. We are currently still fighting that appeals backlog. We are currently sitting around 17,000 appeals cases still needing to be heard. So that funding will definitely be utilized to hear those cases.
All right, Kyle, appreciate you. I'll start with the kind of just sidebar commentary on legislation. Can't speak to where support will be on that or not, but I will say that unlike just keeping the money and not telling us, I do appreciate the effort of at least putting it out there that you would like to keep it.
Yeah, exactly. That we want to be open, honest, and transparent.
I do appreciate that. Chairman Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you may have spoke a little bit to it. The unemployment insurance. I know when the commissioner came to us during the amended, he was talking about maybe giving some money back and taking some money forward and think. Where are we on that? That portion of the unemployment insurance piece.
On the trust fund
Trust
itself?
fund, yes, the trust
Yes,
fund.
the
Where?
excuse me, the trust fund is currently funded at about $1.6 billion. And USDOL says we should have about double that amount in the trust fund. We're kind of doing sort of okay as long as unemployment stays low. But the minute, and we know there's economic cycles, the minute that starts jumping up, we could start seeing lower balances, which would be problematic. So again, we want to go out and collect those unpaid unemployment taxes and put those directly back into the trust fund. We are collecting, and I will say this back to the chairman, we are collecting the penalties and interest fees currently, and those are being 100% remitted monthly to the state treasury. So we have put in since July, actually since June of last year, close to 115 million back into the state treasury. So that's a pretty good amount.
Well, we have a plan, and that's what the commissioner said, to get
Yes.
there, but it's going to take us a
Yes.
while.
And we'd like to be more customer focused. We actually, in our customer response unit last year, we took about 700,000 phone calls from citizens, and it could be things about their claim. It could be from employers. It could be from a number of things. But because the hold times were not so good, 51% of those callers abandoned their call. Now, my theory is when you're talking about money, people don't just give up. So they may have abandoned our call, but then they called you, they called the governor's office,
then
they
call up.
called wherever they had a friendly ear. So we're trying to make sure that we can address those calls within GDOL as we should. So.
And just a commitment, hats off to you guys of
Thank you.
doing that, taking at least my calls, and I'm sure a
Thank
couple
you,
other
yes.
legislators, and making it easy to get back to. So
Yeah,
thank you for that, team. Your
customer service is a clear focus and legislator service of the commissioners.
Thanks, Chairman. Members of the committee, I don't see any other questions.
Thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Yes, happy Cupid Day.
Hopefully the commissioner doesn't drink too much of the water up there.
No, I think he'll come back just as conservative as he is now.
Commissioner O'Connell. Come on. Oh, okay. Page 20 for those of us up here following along.
Good morning, Chairman Wiedewer and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on the governor's recommendations for the Department of Revenue for the fiscal 2025 budget. My name is Frank O'Connell, and I serve as the State Revenue Commissioner. I'm joined today by the department's Chief Financial Officer, Keisha Beavers, and by our External Affairs Director, Austin Gibbons. Now, I can start by going through the items that are common to all state agencies, just briefly. On pages 20 through 22 of the tracking sheet in section 42, the total for the 4% COLA to state employees for the department for a maximum of $3,000, $3,264,931. And I'm sure you've heard it a few times today, but our employees are very, very thankful for that cost of living adjustment, which we hope to see make it through the budget process. Also for the, as I mentioned last time, for the $1,000 payment in December. It makes a big difference to the employees' morale. I might skip the items that are common to all state agencies and move to DOR specific changes starting on page 20, if that's okay. And on line 42.1.6, you'll see a reduction in funds of $281,961 for consolidation of leased office space. Throughout all of the budget programs, the reduction in funds for the total is 1,658,594, and that serves as our 1% efficiency reduction for fiscal 25. This cost savings is a direct result of the consolidation of our leased office space and the relocation of our main headquarters, and going from 280,000 square feet to approximately 110,000 square feet. On line 42.5, I'm sorry, 0.4.5, you'll see a reduction of $405,769 for the Fireworks Trust Fund. And that's due to lower than expected fireworks excise tax collections. On line 42.5.1, there's a $716,018 adjustment for the department serving as a pass-through entity for ERS contributions for tax commissioners. Going to line 42.6.5, and this is our top budget priority for this legislative session. This $3.3 million request reflects a price increase in our contract with Georgia Correctional Industries to manufacture state license plates. The final cost of this contract is always based on demand, and if when we have overruns, they do prevent our motor vehicle division from offering some of the pay-based advancement opportunities because we have to cover that cost. But I'm very excited to see this budget request come through to fruition. Going down to line 42.8.5, you'll see a continuation of our amended 24 request for an initial contact team. In the amended budget, we had asked for $15,300 for startup costs, and the fiscal 25 budget provides $411,554 for salaries and fringe benefits for 6 new tax examiners. Now, these tax examiners will form an initial contact team to reach out to newly delinquent taxpayers. And when I say newly delinquent, these are taxpayers who had recently applied for generally a sales tax or withholding tax ID number, creating return expectation in the system. But a couple months down the road, we can see that no returns have been filed. Now, frequently, these taxpayers are starting out some new business venture. Maybe they're not familiar with the requirements, or it's very possible, since you have to file the sales tax and withholding tax returns on the Georgia Tax Center online, some people have problems with that. And so our contact team can reach out and help them understand how to file their returns online. In our experience, once they understand the requirements, we found that they've been much more likely to remain compliant and require no additional interaction from the department. Finally, please turn to page 22 and see line 42.10.5 for our taxpayer services division. We're requesting $72,900 for an increase in the hourly pay of seasonal mailroom staff to $15 per hour. These seasonal staff work during the peak tax season, and we previously had difficulty recruiting through temp agencies for these positions because of the low pay. We remain hopeful that this increase will assist us in recruitment for these positions. Additionally, let me close by saying that we're grateful for the investment by the General Assembly in our employees, demonstrated by the pay raises over the last 2 years of budgets. And as I said before, Mr. Chairman, this has done quite a bit for employee retention. So with that, we support the governor's recommendations for fiscal 25 and stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just first want to start with just word of appreciation. I hopefully we'll get a bill through that helps you guys save some money on some postage. I know I've said that about 16 times today. You can tell where my mind is, but I appreciate you guys leading on that. Appreciate you partnering with DDS on that piece of legislation. Hopefully it saves taxpayers a significant amount of money.
Thank you, sir. I was surprised to find out that we send out about 990,000 insurance lapse letters every year. So quite a bit.
At $1 a piece. All right. Members of the committee, any other questions for the commissioner? Seeing none, we will take these into consideration. Appreciate y'all very much being here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Have a good day.
You as well. All right, members of the committee, we've rolled through this pretty quickly, which is great. At lunch, we're providing lunch for the committee, but also the hardworking budget staff that often gets overlooked as they sit there and crunch numbers. So if you will join us in the budget office conference room, will be lunch at noon. We'll reconvene at 11:30. Excuse me. We can be there as early as 11:30. I'm sure there'll be plenty of food there at noon as well, but we'll reconvene at 1 in this same room. We will be hearing the compensation resolutions from Chairman Dempsey this afternoon. So thank you for now. We will stand adjourned.